If you thought that the Alberta bills targeting trans youth that were introduced in the legislature last week are bad, buckle up. Danielle Smith's government is taking aim at all trans people in the province next. Or at least that seems like what her party wants her to do. Smith's United Conservative Party held their annual convention this past weekend, and the policies proposed and endorsed by UCP members as potential legislation in the province are some like Florida, Texas, Oklahoma level stuff. That includes an American-style bathroom bill that would limit public washroom and change room access to people's assigned gender at birth, a restriction on government documents to only have male or female gender markers, no more X, and a call to designate all gender-affirming healthcare as elective, and therefore completely cut public health funding for it. And to be clear, all of these policies have nothing to do with so-called parental rights or protecting kids from making decisions too early, as Smith has suggested is the goal behind her legislation that the government introduced this week. No, there's no soft, faux, well-meaning talk to hide behind with these new policies. These policies that are being proposed at the convention are straight up about rolling back the rights of trans people across Alberta. And everyone, trans people and allies, should worry about what precedent that sets for the rest of Canada. We know from legislative fights in the US that bathroom bills do not make public restrooms any safer for cis folks and actively harm trans people and any gender nonconforming cis people too. The American Medical Association, the American Psychological Association, and the American Academy of Pediatrics all have spoken out against similar policies proposed in the US over the past decade. Gender-neutral ID markers were a hard-fought rights victory in Canada in recent years, and putting an X on a driver's license truly does not hurt anyone. And gender-affirming healthcare is healthcare, and it saves lives. It's supported by a slew of medical organizations around the world, and that's the case for trans kids and trans adults too. None of these policies are guaranteed to become law, but we only have to look a year ago to when the slate of bills targeting trans youth that were introduced in the legislature this week were simply policy resolutions passed at the convention. Now, a year later, those policy resolutions are set to become law in Alberta. Smith has a majority government and just won her leadership review with an astounding 91% of party support. She has the power to do a lot of whatever she and her party wants. And based on that convention, restricting the rights of trans people in a way that has not been seen in Canada before is apparently what they want to do. And this should spark concern in other provinces. After all, we're only at this point in Alberta because of the slow roll over so-called parental rights legislation from New Brunswick to Saskatchewan and then Alberta over the past year. And now we're down that slippery slope of anti-trans legislation. And we only have to look to states like Florida and Texas to see how far it can go and just how bad it can get.